Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. You're here at KGTR. I'm Tony. If you haven't already, really quick, just hit that subscribe button, click the notification bell, and any questions, comments, or feedback, leave them below. We got a special treat. Look at this. Look at this. We got Guitar Legends, and it's the Van Halen issue. Look at that awesome cover photo. We're going to be going over this special collector's issue from Guitar World Presents Guitar Legends, featuring none other than Van Halen and Eddie Van Halen. Brought to you by me at KGTR. So we're going to go ahead and open her up. Look at all the amazing photos. Maybe goof on some things if we can goof on it. But this is pretty much going to be like a tribute to Van Halen and Eddie Van Halen and their mark in rock and roll history. So we're going to go page by page. And again, we're just going to go through the pages. So if there's any particular interview that you're interested in for a future video from this magazine, again, you can find these magazines on eBay, just anywhere from like $7.50 to like $50 these magazines sell for. But if there's like particular interview or column or something in this particular issue that you want me to delve into, I'll be happy to make a quick little 10-minute video, and we can read the interview one-on-one aloud so that you can see what was being said in this issue. All right, let's go ahead and begin. And there it is. There's the front cover. Guitar Legends transcribed. We got Hot for Teacher, Panama, Light Up the Sky, Finish What You Started, Ice Cream Man, See My Cursor, Ice Cream Man, plus the definitive guide to playing Eruption. All right, so some of you are major Van Halen fans, Eddie Van Halen fans. Nobody is a bigger Eddie Van Halen fan than me. Just putting it out there. Nobody. But look, Eddie's Guide to the Best of Van Halen. So this is a must-have issue. So if you want to get this issue, I suggest you go to eBay, and maybe you can find it on eBay. All right, but I'm going to give it to you here for free. All right, let's go ahead and open her up, and that's the cover. Let's go ahead and see what's inside this legendary issue. All right, look at this. We got Sammy Hagar. Look at this beautiful Gibson Les Paul. Cherry, what is this? Cherry Burst? Not Cherry Burst, but it's a cherry. But look, black DiMarzio Super Distortion pickups. Cream humbucker rings right there. So I would say these are black DiMarzio Super Distortion pickups here. Look at this little crate amplifier. Look at this. Take your shot, cross the border, feel the heat. I guess that's the song, right? Take your shot, cross the border, feel the heat. That's a pretty cool picture with Sammy Hagar. Now, I don't know what year this is, so maybe we can find out what year this issue is. Maybe it'll tell me here. This is 2004 right here. See, it's a really small fine print. But again, these are the table of contents. Again, I'm just going to go page by page. I don't want to delve into each little article and nugget. But if something jumps at you, say, hey, Tony, can you do a quick little video on that little segment or article? I'll be happy to do so. All right. So Guitar Legends, that's obviously too small for me to read. Look, Atomic Punk, the new king of heavy metal. You know who that is. The Life and Times of Van Halen. On the Road with Van Halen. Unlawful Carnal Knowledge. Feels So Good. Look, At the Monster of Rock. Sammy Drills Eddie. And Tapping Young Lad. So, alright, this is going to be pretty much like a big tribute. Let's go ahead and open her up. This is, I believe, 90-page Van Halen Gold. Alright, let's go ahead. So some of you have never seen this issue. Please forgive me, but it's hard to scan magazines open, side by side with that damn crease. So, fortunately, I have two copies of it, though. I have two copies of this. One is intact. This one, I was able to just basically tear page by page by page and scan page by page by page. So, this is what you're going to get, because I couldn't press my book flat. All right, and so I wanted to give it to you like this. All right, look at this beautiful collection. Look, look. See, that's what I have. I have these cream DiMarzio Super Distortion pickups right here. So that's what that is, I believe. Look, remember on the album he had a black headstock here. So this guitar has gone through several necks. This guitar is a monster. I love that headstock right there. Beast. This guitar is weird and ugly, but I have never seen anyone out there with a replica of this. Can you imagine if Firefly made a replica of this guitar? people would buy it, obviously, right? And they probably put some striping on it just to make it personalized. Look at this Gibson, beautiful Gibson Les Paul, like a honey burst or something, like a honey. And this is an ovation right here. This is clearly an ovation. Look at this. They call this what? The Dragon guitar or something like that. Some dragon. Look, more DiMarzio Super Distortions. You got the Floyd Rose right here. I just call it the DiMarzio Super Distortions because that was the main pickup. The #1 pickup in the 70s for rock. Alright, look at this. There's another variation. This has a pick guard right here. Another variation. Look at this beautiful guitar. Unfinished. This is like a 335 right here. Here's a Flying V. But look, here's a Dean guitar. See the wings right there? There's a Dean guitar in the bottom. Now we're going to go to the next page, see if we can get a better look. So that was it. Yeah, so here is a guitar, which I haven't seen anyone else have. The striped guitar, but with the white pick guard. So if I go back to that page, here's the, see, it looks like a Strat style guitar, right? But you put a pick guard on it. So I have yet to see a replica with the white pick guard. And there's that famous Star guitar, beautiful guitar. And look at these weird pickups here. All right, so again, the first article here is Atomic Punk, the story of how Eddie Van Halen revolutionized rock guitar by Dan Amrich. So again, look at this. You want me to republish this article? I'll be happy to republish this article for you. We can do that. Right, so that's the Atomic Punk, the story of how Eddie Van Halen revolutionized rock guitar. Right, next page. This beautiful, awesome, iconic shot that's all over the internet. Look at this. This was during, I believe, the 1978 album. So they got a great studio shot. Oh, can you imagine if there was video of that? That's what bands should do. I'm sorry, but if you're gonna go to the recording studio, just stick a camera and just record it 24/7. All the goofs, all the errors, all the playbacks. You can have your engineers do all their stuff, but have a camera on the band, rehearsals 24/7, just so you have it. So that 20, 30, 40 years later, you can say, look what we have behind the scenes of the recording process. Look, they blew us off the stage every night. Ozzy Osbourne is saying this. Now this is 1979, so this is when they opened up for Black Sabbath, right? 78, 79, or 79, he was still with, I think he already formed Ozzy Osbourne. But if it was 78, they opened up for Ozzy Osbourne, or Black Sabbath rather. And Ozzy was with Black Sabbath. So there you go, look at that. Right, some more iconic shots. Now this is from 81, 82 era with that striped shirt. Some more, this must be a great article. Look, Eddie Van Halen on, Ain't Talking About Love. Alright, that's small print. Again, I'll be more than happy to delve into this. But you can find this issue on eBay if you want to buy it. Right, this is some photo roll right here of the album cover. Different photos of the infamous album cover and the back cover, I believe. And so look, there it is right there. It looks like it right there. One of these, here it is with that point right there. That looks like the album, the back of the album right there. All right, there he is with Van Halen 3. They call this Van Halen 3. They have Van Halen with David Lee Roth, the Van Halen 2 era with Sammy Hagar, and then the Van Halen 3 era with, I'm sorry, I forgot his name already, Gary. I think his name is Gary from Extreme. And that was from the Van Halen 3 era. And look, I think a reunion is inevitable. Sammy Hagar. This is in 2004. So this issue came out in 2004. So they were talking about reunions back in 2004. Look, the new king of heavy metal. Look at this. Isn't that awesome? How they put the Eddie Van Halen striping on heavy metal. You can make anything Van Halenized by making stripes inside the lettering. Look at this. So someone should copy this. Look, heavy metal and put Van Halen stripes. Look. Guitar World kicked off its first full year of operation by interviewing the man who would change rock guitar forever by John Styx. All right, so this talks about the new king of heavy metal, and that was Van Halen. That was Van Halen. All right, look at this iconic shot. This is obviously 1979 era. Again, this is the Bumblebee, and again the black headstock is missing, so this is a totally different neck right there. You must have the Floyd Rose here somewhere. And it looks like either a photo shoot or a live shot. Isn't that awesome? Alright, look at this. There he is with the incarnation of the Frankenstrat. Now, but look, here's a black headstock. So look at that. Different necks, different paint jobs, and whatnot. But there he is, Eddie Van Halen. This is still on the New Kings of Metal column or article. Look, the black headstock. I think this is the very first early rendition of the Frankenstrat. I don't think the body changed per se, but he just kept slapping on different necks. So either he was breaking necks, or he just was trying different things every time. He just, a madman. So again, look, they're interviewing Van Halen, and on the bottom, so if you want to know what they're talking about, let me know. Look at this beautiful shot. Look, his miniature Les Paul. I'm surprised I don't see too many miniature Les Pauls out there. Maybe Firefly can come up with a miniature Les Paul. Alright, look at this variation. I forgot what this is called. There's a name for this. I don't see many people copying this design. To me, it's ugly. I don't like it. It's got a weird design right here. Those big dots. I don't like that. There's the Frankenstrat, I believe. Again, different headstock. There's the Circles guitar, which I guess later became the Rastafarian guitar. Here's the Gibson SG. Look, here's some more striped guitars down here at the bottom. So, could be a studio. Who knows where that was taken out. The Life and Times. Let me just go to the next page real fast. Look, the Life and Times of Van Halen. Now again, sorry, this was obviously going to be maybe like a poster shot, but I'm scanning these one by one, so you just have to enjoy what you can. All right, look at these chicks. They got little stars on their boobs, right, to make it PG. And you got David Lee Roth. And then, as Jump hit Billboard's #1 slot, Guitar World presented one of the first interviews from 5150, Edwards' new home studio, by Steve Rosen. Alright, so this is basically going to cover the interview by Steve Rosen. So again, that interview will be probably right in here. Look at this, another iconic shot right there. This looks to be like from 1980-81 era. He's wearing the jumpsuit right here from Women and Children First. Right? Don't we just love? Look. Again, we can go over this entire interview if you want to in another video. Right? Some nice little beautiful shot right here of the brothers. Look, I'm happy being who I am. I wouldn't want to be anybody else. Now, who are they quoting? Who are they quoting? Eddie Van Halen on Jump. So he's talking about his opinion on Jump and his opinion on Panama. Again, over here, more of the interview. Again, more of the interview. Look at this famous 1981 shot right here. I don't wanna hear about it. Remember that famous video on MTV? I believe it's 3 or 4 tracks. Someone says from Oakland or something like that. But the pro shots, those 3 or 4 videos of pro shot. Hear about it later. Unchained, and then something else. But this looks like from that tour, 80-81 tour. So there's the famous Eddie Van Halen with these little socks right there. Again, look at the massive speakers. There's that star guitar with that ugly headstock. I hate the headstock. Alright, this is a continuation of that interview. So I'll be happy to go over the interview. Look, there he is at 5150 Studios in his own mixing board. I didn't think Eruption would be something we'd put on a record, but I like the way it sounds. Oh yeah, with what's his name? Ted Templeman adding all that reverb. Oh, he made it good. Yeah, that reverb was the definitive sound of Van Halen. The reverb, that's what made Van Halen 1 incredible. The reverb, oh, it was exquisite. Alright, look at this. The black headstock. This was the first incarnation of the Frankenstrat with the black headstock. Because I guess when you got it and you first played it, it had the black headstock. And then later he took it off. So that I do know for a fact. The black headstock was the first incarnation of this Frankenstrat. And there he is doing something here on the keyboards or the mixer right there. Again, here's that interview. It's still continuing. So if anything, this magazine, just special edition magazine has some great photos of Van Halen. Look, Cream made music exciting in a way I don't think people really understood. That's with Eric Clapton. It was almost as if The lyric and the actual song structure was secondary. And look at this. What's this headstock say? Do we know what this headstock says? Let's go ahead and see if we can blow her up. Hold on. There it is. What does that say? I can't read that, but it looks like an early Kramer, right? Looks like an early Kramer headstock. So, not bad, huh? And look, this leopard jacket. Who else copied that leopard jacket? Back in '84, Yngwie, he wore it with Alcatraz. He had like a little leopard, or these striped jackets. Look it up. Alcatraz, Yngwie's wearing this almost like the same style of jacket when he was with Alcatraz, with black leather pants. All right, another great photo right here. And look, the interview still continues down here. Look, the interview. So this magazine is a collector's dream. If you're a fan of Van Halen, you have to have this magazine. So if you're a fan, you need this magazine. Look, I'm partly brainwashed by the whole aspect of the business, that there's some things expected of me. Who's that? David Lee Roth, Alex, Michael Anthony, or Eddie? So we don't know who made that quote. Look at this, another iconic shot right there. Look. Look. On the road, David Lee Roth was out. Sammy Hagar was in. And Guitar World was there with the inside scoop by Steven Rosen. So this is going to talk about when or why David Lee Roth left, and how and when Sammy Hagar was brought into the band. That's what this article is about. It's the inside scoop. Look at this. Look, another variation of the Frankenstrat. Look, the headstock right there. Isn't that awesome? Look at that. Look at these jeans. We know who copied him with the jeans. George Lynch. He had one also. It's called Patches. He had jeans with all these patches, which he later made a guitar out of. So interesting. All right, look, Sammy Hagar, Eddie Van Halen. Look, a little cigarette right here. See his little cigarette? Look at his guitar right here. Look. There's that guitar. Beautiful guitar right there. Look at Michael Anthony. The new lineup right here. So, again, look at this interview. This whole interview is how David Lee Roth was out and Sammy was in. Eddie Van Halen on. Why can't this be love and dreams? So here he's probably discussing how that came about, how he created it. All right. Another photo here with Eddie Van Halen. Look. I built the 5150 studio for the benefit of all of us, for the family, for the band. But I guess certain people didn't look at it that way. So maybe that's a jab at David Lee Roth, where he wanted to have his own recording studio and everybody has to record at 5150. And maybe David Lee Roth said, no, I want to record over here. Or why does it have to be at your house? You know, so maybe that's what he's talking about. We won't know unless you read the article. So just a heads up. Alright, look at this awesome picture here. Look at this guitar. Now a lot of people pride themselves on having every model variation strike guitar just to say they have it. So here's another variation strike guitar. Look at this ugly neck. But again, he swapped out necks, you know, like Halloween candy. He swapped out necks like Halloween candy. So there he is right there. Look, unlawful carnal riffage. Alright, so these are some music, sheet music right here. Beautiful girls. Da-da-da-da-da. Look, Little Dreamer. Look, 7 shining rhythm guitar moments from Van Halen's vast catalog of raucous riffs by Michael Mueller. So Michael Mueller is going to go over it. Little Dreamer, Beautiful Girls, with the sheet music. See? Look at this. Look. Another variation of the guitar. Look, there's another variation. Look at that. Yeah, so many variations of this Frankenstrat. Look at this guitar right here. Look, isn't that beautiful? This brown burst tobacco. I don't know what this is called, but it's a beautiful guitar. And this is really small right here. So there you go. That's a great photo. Okay, here's some more sheet music. Take your whiskey home. Mean Street. Unchained, Best of Both Worlds, and 318, I think it is, from Unlawful Carnal Knowledge. Remember the riffage. Look, feels so good. Again, more with the Van Halen striping. Look at his new guitar right here. 5150. He's going off. Look at that bend. Look at the string. He's bending. He always bends like a step and a half over the notes. You can pitch. You can bend half note, full notes. He goes like 1.5 to get these awesome bends. Look, as OU812 races up the charts, Eddie Van Halen discusses his band's latest work and his evolution as a guitar god. So this is 2004. So again, now this is an interview with Eddie Van Halen back in 2004. Or it was an excerpt from an earlier magazine. I think it was an excerpt right here. Okay, yeah. So reprinted from Guitar for the Practicing Musician in 1988. So if you have this issue of Eddie Van Halen from 1988, they reprinted it in this magazine as a tribute. So you may have that magazine. So here is the interview republished. Now look at this guitar right here. Look. Let's go ahead and see if we can zoom that in. Isn't that awesome guitar right there? Look at that. Look at that headstock. I don't think about soloing as much as I did on our first album. Think about that. A lot of players now trying to copy Eddie. They're all trying to think that playing fast is impressive. It's not. And everyone always says less is more. Now when Eddie came out in 78, he blew doors on everybody because he was fast. And he had the best rhythm of anybody. But you can see his playing styles develop either less flashy, more bluesy, more feeling, slower, more deliberate, more emotional. Whereas Van Halen 1 and 2 was like, check this out. I'm going to melt your face off. Check this out. So Van Halen 1 and 2 was in your face. But then gradually, it's all there. Look at the pudding. His playing progressed or just matured. And so here, again, I don't think about soloing as much as I did on our first album. So back when he came out, it was all about the solo. Now, as you grow older, it was all about the music. I don't he was the first to tell you that. It was all about the music. The solo is secondary. You know, so see, I know Eddie Van Halen. I know but look, isn't that awesome guitar right here? Look. Oh, look at this. Eddie Van Halen on the keyboards right here. So there he is. Look at his Marshall right there. Always, the scientist. Always the scientist creating and writing and mastering, mixing and so forth. All right, there. Okay, look, another variation with a red headstock. Look at this right there. Look, and there's his 1, 2, 3 lock box. There's his little Kramer right there too. Look, I had an empty feeling when my father died because a lot of my drive was for him. To make him proud, it was his name. Isn't that real nice? So this is what Eddie Van Halen was saying back in 1988. And this could have been right during the Monsters of Rock tour or right before the Monsters of Rock tour. I think the issue came out in September and the Monsters of Rock tour of 88 was already over. So at some point in 88, they interviewed him for this interview right here. Look, when I used to get crocked, I'd go out there and play, I'd be on autopilot. And sometimes I'd be more spontaneous, but I'm more consistent now. Again, he was just in your face, blowing doors, blowing everybody away, turning heads in his early days. But now he's more disciplined. He was more disciplined in 2004, or actually this is from 1988. So by 1988, he feels he was more disciplined, more deliberate, and not so much the flash, but more of the songwriting. Hence, adding more of the keyboards, more melodic playing, less flash. He was still Eddie doing the tapping and the dive bombs, but it was less of it. He didn't have to prove himself because pretty much he laid out all the blueprint for every other guitar player after him to copy and steal and borrow. Alright, look at this. See, look, another variation of the striped guitar. Look at these pants. Total Eddie Van Halen trademark. Look. Again, there was no other player like him. Look at that. The monster of rock. He sparked an eruption, and an aftershock of monumental proportions. Edgar Van Halen, Guitar World's Player of the Decade by Joe Basso. So this is again reprinted from February of 1990. Now, 80s metal was already over. Grunge was pretty much like taking off. And so, but he's pretty much telling you the 80s decade belonged to Eddie Van Halen. All the guitar players that came after him owed it all to Eddie Van Halen. And it's true. Every shredder that came out in the 80s, neoclassical, all the rock, jazz, fusion players, all the neoclassical, harmonic minor, all the Paul Gilberts, everybody was influenced by Eddie from 1978 and on. They were, with the equipment, the strings, the hardware, the techniques, everything was all attributed to Eddie. And then they branched out to do their own thing. But it all came down to Eddie. That's why he was a player of the decade. All right, look at this. See the tapping. Akira Takasaki, Vigo Brada, all these people tapping, and Steve Lynch, all the tapping. Nobody was tapping before Eddie. And you can say, yeah, there were, but he put it on the map, and then everybody started tapping. Nobody was dive bombing until Eddie. Then everybody started dive bombing. No one had a super strat until he had the super strat, and on and on and on. Look, whether I tap or not, I'm still a good player. So see? But we love Akira Takasaki, and we love other players like that. Look, another infamous photo from 1978. Look at him with his Echoplex right there. He's playing with his Echoplex. Can you imagine when he recorded that eruption in the studio with one take or whatever, 1 or 2 takes? If there was a video camera there. Oh, that's what I'm saying. Bands today, they should always record their recording. I don't care. Just get your camera out there, put it in the corner, and don't even look at it. Just record it. So you have a video of it. Because that would have been great to have had an 8mm footage of him playing Eruption. Oh. Okay, look at these. Look, variations. See the variations right here? There's that miniature Les Paul. Look at the variations right there. Look. Look at the headstocks. Look at the striping. Here's a black stripe right there. Here's a white stripe right there. Variations, buddy. Variations. All right, look at these pants. He's on tour right here. If I had to learn to read music, it would take forever. That's like me. And a lot of people, you learn by ear. I learned by ear, but this guy was gifted because he can play piano and I think some other instrument. And so could Alex Van Halen. He can play guitar and drums. And so, but his family was also gifted musically. So you can learn by ear. So I don't read music. I play by ear. But I'm sure he can read music too. All right, look. Again, look at these pants. Another variation of his striped guitar on tour. Eddie Van Halen on Pound Cake. Remember, this is from 1990. This interview was from 1990. Now, look at this guitar. 1 pickup, 2 pickup, and a humbucker. Does anyone know what guitar this is? Let's blow that up. Watch. All right, what guitar is that? Was that a homemade guitar? What's all this right here? Look, are these knobs? Look at this. Is this a prototype? Look. Can anyone tell me what guitar this is? Look, this looks like a Telecaster headstock. And look at this guitar. Look. Or a single, PAF. Not PAF. What's it called? P90. So is this a P90 right here? Look. So single, is this a P90? And look at this weird tremolo here. So I'm going to blow that up again. So what is that? Look. And look at all these knobs. Look. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's six knobs here. What's up with that? So anyone can tell me what that guitar is? Let me know. Because I've never seen that guitar anywhere. So let me know if you've seen it. Maybe someone out there will replicate it. So there we go. Look at this Marshall stack with all these red stripings. That's pretty clever, huh? Again, right here in the studio, if I want to play keyboards or if I want to play tuba, I'll play it. So see, Eddie Van Halen did what he wanted to do when he wanted to do it. And that's the way it is. All right, what else? Sammy drills Eddie. Hagar puts on his journalism cap and interviews Van Halen on subjects ranging from guitar licks and tricks to the Brown sound and songwriting inspiration. Now this was reposted from Guitar for the Practicing Musician in June of 1993. So, obviously I'm not going to go over this interview. So if you happen to have, look, here's the cover. If any of you happen to have this issue, that's where this interview is from. If you don't happen to have this issue, but you want me to go over this interview, just tell me and I'll make a quick little video and we'll go over this interview by Sammy Hagar to Eddie Van Halen. Here we go. Look at it. Look, another variation. Look at this. Some of you could take a screenshot and make your own striped version of this. Look at this. Look how ugly this fretboard is. Look. But there's another variation. Look at this. Isn't this an awesome variation? This is a cool design right here. Again, with the damn cigarette. Alright, well, that's the beautiful guitar right here. Look. So here's Sammy Hagar interviewing Eddie Van Halen. Right? So here's Eddie Van Halen on right now. And here's that interview that appeared in 1993, Guitar for the Practicing Musician. Right? Look, the drill. Here's the drill. Everyone knows he copied Paul Gilbert. Okay, let's be honest. Paul Gilbert started a drill. That's a fact. Word got out to Eddie. Eddie saw him or whatever. Paul Gilbert came up with the drill. And the fact that Eddie Van Halen copied Paul Gilbert is very flattering to Paul Gilbert. So we all know that Paul Gilbert came up with it. Alright, look. More of the interview with Sammy Hagar and Eddie Van Halen. I'm sure it's a good interview. Check it out. Look at this. Look at Sammy Hagar interviewing Eddie Van Halen. Look. The tones behind the tunes. Alright, look at this. I'm going to blow this up. So this is a, you know what? This is weird. I need to copy these settings. I'm going to blow this up for you real fast. I bought a GNX4 back in 2004. I bought one, but I could never get the damn thing to work. It had a built-in drum machine too. This is it right here. But let me go ahead and blow this up. So what's this say? Look. So look, if you have the GNX4 workstation, these are the settings to get the eruption tone. Look. Here's your clean. Let me see if I can blow this up some more. Look. There we go. Look. Channel 1 EQ on. Gen X. Channel 1. There's the name of the amp. British Stack, I think. Channel 2 EQ on. Tone. Channel 2. Obviously, there's no wah pickup off. Compression is off. Whammy is off. Stop box is off. Noise gate on. It's on 15. There's a chorus off. Flanger, I believe, is on 3. Delay is on 370 milliseconds right here. Look, so eruption. So they're saying the eruption had milliseconds at 370 with the mix probably at 20. Reverb on, Hall, not plate. There it is right there. There's probably the feedback right there. And so this gives you the settings. Let me exit out of it. So if you want to take a screenshot. Now these are the settings for the GNX4, right? There we go. If you want to take a screenshot, these are their settings for Ice Cream Man, Panama, Hopper Teacher, and Finish What You Started. So this is going to be a nice clean tone right here. Isn't that pretty cool? They're giving you tones with the GNX4 to copy Eddie Van Halen. So there you go. What's next? Notation guide. Look, the GNX4. I had this. Oh, it was awesome. But it wasn't practical for me. And I'll tell you, after I had this one, I went out and bought the Boss E-Band and never looked back. I now have 4 Boss E-Bands. So, but the GNX4 by Digitech was good. Look, Tapping Young Lad. At 23, Edward Van Halen set the bar for rock guitar with Eruption. See? His masterpiece of two-handed tapping, Guitar World helps you rise to this challenge with this in-depth lesson by Jimmy Brown. Now this is not reposted. This is an in-depth lesson by Jimmy Brown. So Jimmy Brown's going to give you the tabs right here on how to play Eruption with that. The A. And to date, no one else can play Eruption like Eddie. Nobody. There are a lot of clones and copycats, but they don't have the feel of Eddie. Is that true? So they can copy Eddie. A lot of people can copy Eddie, but they don't sound like Eddie. They don't have feeling like Eddie. You know, there's a lot of George Lynch clones out there. They know all the George Lynch solos and licks, but they don't sound like George Lynch. They don't play like George Lynch. Ace Frehley's sloppy. So is Jimmy Page. They're sloppy guitar players, but they're so sloppy. They're so good. There's no Jimmy Page clone out there. There's no Ace Frehley clone out there. Because they have their own unique style. So you can play a person solo note for note. But if you can't sound like him or play it like him, why bother? Why bother? Just say, oh look, I know Eruption. Okay, that sounds nothing like Eruption. See? Hey, this guy can play Eruption. Let me hear it. Okay, that sounds nothing like Eruption. Myself included. I can't play. I used to play Eruption, but I didn't sound like Eddie. So what's the point? You know, if you can't sound or play like him, what's the point? What's the point? So, but look, here's a lesson. If you want to play Eruption, you better well play like the record. And if you can't, what's the point? Look, two-handed tapping. And then you look, Dr. Van Halen's Monster. See? Dr. Van Halen. Isn't that cool? And again, more with Eruption. Look, head of the class, power tube trip, going through a phase. See? The phase 90. One phrase at a time. Da-da-da, 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 da-da-da. Lickety, pickety, pickety. Remember the fast trill? See, it breaks it down for you. Isn't that cool? Look, playing taps. It sounded all classical. Remember when it came out? It sounded totally classical, like Baroque. John Sebastian Bach. Oh, let me go back. Look. See, let me see if I can blow her up. Look. Oops, I hit the wrong button. Wait. I wanted to blow it up. See, look. See right there in the bottom? Those are the chords. Those are the chords right there. Look. Those are the chords for you. For Eruption. Or Hopper Teacher, rather. I'm sorry. So, all right, there we go. Hopper Teacher. Look at all these chords for Hopper Teacher. Look. Let's see if I can blow her up. Look. Look at the chords. Look. That's how you read tabs. Look. Again, this is for Digitech GNX4 workstation. All right. So there we go. I'm just going to go by this pretty quickly. Again, all these now, I'm sure you can find. Remember, this is 2004. Everything is available on the internet, so you can find this all over the internet. Tabs, sheet music, and on YouTube, thousands of guitar players are playing covers of these, guitar lessons of these. So, just so you know, I'm just going through this pretty quickly, because let's just look, finish what you started. These are all the chords. Finish what you started. But again, you can find all these on YouTube. Just Google sheet music for Finish What You Started by Van Halen. You'll find it. Trust me, you'll find it. Or guitar lessons, Finish What You Started. You'll probably find dozens and dozens of very well established guitar players, qualified guitar players, showing you how to play it note for note, the right picking and technique or the guitar tone. So YouTube is awesome to learn guitar. Now, most of us, when we grew up, we didn't have YouTube. We had record players or tape decks. And we lifted up the needle and put it back down over and over and over. Or we did play, stop, rewind, play, stop, rewind, play. Look, Light Up the Sky by Van Halen. See, look, all the chords. Look at all the chords for Light Up the Sky. Eddie Van Halen was a monster. Again. You can find all this. Look, Ice Cream Man. Boom, 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 boom. See, isn't that cool? Ice Cream Man. All right, we're about 2 more pages and we're done with this issue. Look. All right, this is the very last. This is the back cover of the magazine. Musician's Brand PV 5150 PVM. How many of you guys have this? Look, so back in 2004, this amp was selling for $1,000. The 5150 head and the PV right there. Look at this Wolfgang guitar. That's a lot of money. $1649 in 2004 was a lot of money. To this date, $1649 is a lot of money. So some people are selling these used for $8.99. You know, these Wolfgangs. Well, that's a nice Wolfgang, right? I never played a Wolfgang, so I never played a PV. So I can't comment. I'm sure they're good because a lot of people love them. But I just don't like the shape, you know, and that's on me. But I can't get into the shape. But I said the same thing about Telecaster, so who knows? So again, for your free 1-year catalog subscription, musiciansbrand.com. So this is a great magazine right there. And that was the back cover. Let's go back to the front cover. And there you have it. That was the special collector's issue of Guitar Legends featuring Van Halen. Again, Eddie's Guide to the Best of Van Halen. 5 rare interviews, which were reposted from Guitar for the Practicing Musician. Complete band history. Incredible unseen photos, which I shared with you. And Sammy interviews Eddie. That was also reposted from a 1993 interview edition with Sammy Hagar interviewing Eddie Van Halen. If there's any interviews that you would like me to post and we can read it aloud where you know what they're saying, I'll be more than happy to do that. If you don't ask, you won't get. If you're happy like this is totally cool. I just wanted to go with you page by page. All right, let me know your thoughts on this issue. Do you have this issue? How many of you are going to go out and go on eBay and look for this issue and try to buy it? I'm sure it's out there. So most of these magazines you can find on eBay. Anywhere from, I always say $7.50 because that's the cheapest I've ever paid for a magazine. One issue is like $7.50. Unless it's like really torn up or something, you may get it for like $4.99. But $7 to $8 for like an issue or up, you get lucky with these issues. All right. So there you have it, Guitar Legends, and this one featured Van Halen. So give me your thoughts, comments, and feedback below. If you have any questions, comments, again, leave them below. I'm Tony. Thanks for joining me here at KGTR. Thank you for making this series a huge success. Don't worry, we still got a lot of guitar tones coming for you. More guitar reviews and more vintage magazine reviews. Since you guys seem to like this, I'm getting a lot of private messages and emails saying, do you have this issue? I have this issue. Can you repost this issue? And I'm doing my best to see what I have in my arsenal to share with you because I'm all about sharing and I'm here for you. I'm here because of you. All right. Thanks everybody for joining me. Stay tuned. We got a lot more coming your way. All right. Bye, everybody.